what God says about himself. Now that we know that God has spoken about everything you need to know about him, we will consider some of the central truths God wants you to know. Don't be fooled into glossing over these. Moses warned his people. They are not just idle words for you. They are your life. As pain drives you to the floor, one of the first questions you will need to settle is that of the character of God. Why would God allow this to happen to the person I love? Why would God allow such agony to darken my path right now? Is God expecting me to work out what he is trying to teach me through this calamity? Will I ever truly discover what he is intending to accomplish? Was my life so bad that God had to do this in order to rectify my failures? Remarkably, the mind of a sorrowing person begins to revolve around God. That is a wonderful mercy of God that has been received gratefully by millions of sorrowing people and also abused by those whose hearts turn away from God under intense pain. Within moments of my wife's death and my brother's death before that, there were solid facts I knew about God that brought me immense comfort, even through tears. Armed with these facts, I knew that if I constructed this tragedy in such a way that God turned out to be the one who should be questioned, I had understood it incorrectly. This is true because of what the Bible teaches about the person of God. Allow me to share some of these encouraging truths with you. God created the universe, and through his astounding works of providence, sustains, works with, and governs it. He has purposes that, if we could see them all, would leave us stunned by his wisdom and beauty. God has even chosen that the prayers of people will play a role in the way he orchestrates the events of this created order. In grief, prayer is far from a powerless muttering of words into empty space. God hears and responds to this desperate breathing of your soul. These facts have brought me comfort. The Bible teaches that there is only one God, yet that there are three persons who are called God. Each of these three persons plays an indispensable role in the salvation of a soul. Every member of the Godhead is devoted to the good of the people of God and has applied himself for their good. Even while facing the ghastly reality of death, this is a delightful reality. The Bible also teaches that we can know God. He is not a mysterious, impersonal force that we can never completely understand. No, God is a person, and we can know him accurately in his devotion to his glory, in lavishing kindness on his people. Because you know this about God, when facing death, you can have complete confidence and calmness. Another comforting fact about God, taught in the Bible, is that God is not man-centered. He is independent. He doesn't need people or creation at all. God is not a needy God. This may sound more like a discouragement than a word of hope, but the contrary is true. God actually created people in a created universe with the purpose that they would bring joy to his heart and glory to him. So this becomes a massive comfort. Even though I feel the sting of grief, God is experiencing joy because of the way I'm thinking accurately about who he is and how he relates to people and his created order. God, oh, the mystery, has chosen to find joy in my response to grief, a joy that will remain with him forever and impact the way he lavishes his love on me forever. People find it unsettling to live or work with people who are unpredictable. Unpredictability is a bad character quality that God can never be accused of cultivating. God is beautifully consistent and unchanging. Whether you are living in happy life circumstances or whether you are barely surviving under the blistering agonies of grief, you can depend on God to never impulsively lash out at you or ignore you. He is always the same. He can be trusted to always act according to His excellent character. He is not like friends who desert you in your time of dire need or become impatient or exasperated with you. His moral glory will always shine through every interaction. Not only is God knowable, independent, and unchangeable, but He will never cease to exist in that form. He will always be the excellent person He is now and has been before He created this world for you to live on. God can accumulate every detail of forever into one single thought, and He can think clearly on one tiny detail forever, all at the same time. This makes Him the God for whom the big picture is always completely in focus. But that doesn't make Him unable to be completely absorbed with a single wail of agony that you utter while stark alone in the dead of night. God places that single utterance perfectly into the vast scheme of His eternal design. Because God is eternal, your moments are important to Him. Also, of inestimable comfort is the fact that God is always everywhere. It would be a sad Christian who thought of God only as a massive being like a giant striding through the universe. In that case, your God would be so immense that you could despair of ever reaching His almighty ear with your whimpering prayers. You may, in grief, even imagine yourself to be crushed under His foot by accident, and it will take some time for Him to realize that He has trodden on you. A view of God like this would certainly rob you of true biblical hope. While the Bible does speak of God as immense, wonderfully, God is also shown to be the all-powerful person who is present with His entire being at every single point in space, all the time. Even as you kneel on the floor in agony in a private room shedding tears that no one will ever see, God is there with His whole caring being and His full attention and compassion. Not a tear, a yearning, a groan, a pang is ever wasted as God stares kindly into your aching heart. God reveals much more about Himself in the Bible. He is a spirit being, making it possible for Him to be present in this mind-stretching way. He is invisible, but this doesn't make Him less present. We simply can't see Him. This reveals something of His amazing wisdom. He is able to be completely present with you, yet because you can't see Him, you have the opportunity to reveal who you truly are in your motives, desires, and lifestyle. God is brilliantly wise. He is also truthful, evaluating every life and circumstance with complete accuracy. He truly understands all of the complexities of your heart and the multi-stranded hurts that you yourself can't even explain to another person. This too should be an encouragement. He is faithful, never failing to do what He has promised to do. Just as an example of one of His promises, we could look at a verse like this: "Never will I leave you, never will I forsake you." God also knows everything, even the billions of strands of knowledge that impact your situation that you have not even thought of yet. The gravity and hope of your calamity are far more forceful in the mind of God than they are in yours. He is good, something you may be hard-pressed to question while in pain. Yet, because He is good, God always works toward the most wonderful objective for you, and He does so in a beautiful way. While grief may not appear to be beautiful in the moment, you need to convince yourself that when you one day see it in the full picture God is painting, it will be unspeakably attractive and satisfying. You can know this as a fact because you know that God is good. God is a loving God, always doing what He knows is best for every individual. What is best, as we even know from ordinary life events like visiting the dentist, is not always what feels best. It is unwise to conclude that what has happened is not best because you can't see how it could possibly be best. Remember that in addition to being loving, God is merciful. This means that the heart of God is moved by people trapped in misery, and He works to relieve that misery. Closely related to His mercy is His grace. Because God is a gracious God, He is kind and patient to people who truly deserve to be punished severely. He gives people time as an evidence of His grace and patience. Still having fresh images in your mind of the death of a person you really loved, your mind and heart are well engaged in considering the time God has given you. God hates sin and will never be guilty of sin. You can be quite sure of this because God is both holy and righteous. It is wise to remember this as you think about God in the context of pain. Regardless of how you construct God's will in your calamity, you should never come to the conclusion that God has done something wrong. That is the wrong conclusion. That is to sin against God by attributing to Him motives, thoughts, and actions of which He is not guilty. This is a self-destructive way of thinking that will increase your sorrow and decrease your chance of recapturing true biblical hope. God is peaceful and ordered in His affairs, never panicky or uncertain about how He should accomplish an objective or what the result may be. You may be exhibiting such tendencies, yet you can find courage in the fact that God is not. Everything is under complete, ordered, peaceful control. You may even be struggling with an overwhelming awareness of your own mortality. God is in peaceful, ordered, calm control of that too. Life and death are in His competent hand. You may be surprised to discover that God's jealousy too is an encouragement to you in your grief. Just as a loving father passionately protects his wife and children from harm, even to the point of death, so God jealously shields and guards not only His children, but also His own honor. God is the final standard of what is right and praiseworthy and glorious. His honor should be defended. As a child of God, the jealous eye of the Father is fixed unblinkingly upon you, and not one single moment of calamity that is not good for you and God's glory will ever befall you. So, knowing the jealousy of God, you can anticipate with excitement the wonderful eternal blessing of God that will come about as a result of your present pain. He shields you in the hollow of His jealous hand, wholly invulnerable to even the threat of permanent evil. If God fiercely guards His children in this way, how does He respond to those who attempt to destroy His loved ones from the outside of His protective hand? I am grateful to know that God is a God of wrath. If life in the Father's hand involves the degree of pain experienced in the face of death, how terrible will be the ultimate pain and calamity for the enemies of God. For God, this is personal, and He will deliberately destroy any individual who attempts to intrude upon the well-being of His beloved people. This is not to say that no true believer will never suffer at the hands of wicked people. And if you are reading this page, you have probably been such a victim already. What this means is that ultimately and permanently, this has no negative impact upon you. The current pain is temporary, and as God destroys his enemies forever, for you it is a weight of glory and joy and peace that you would find impossible to bear had God not given you remarkable new strength. Because God is a God of wrath, you, as a child of God, can have true biblical hope. God exercises his own will. He does this in complete freedom from the opinions of others. Imagine that God felt compelled to live up to the man-centered image modern society wants to mold him into. He would not be able to do anything that is either truly good or glorious. Rather, he would be an indulgent God who permitted vile rebellion into his presence. This would not be glory, but a continuation of the present misery of this fallen world. As God majestically sweeps through time and space according to his own desirable objectives, he displays his immeasurable power and sovereignty. He does as he pleases. I say, if a God such as the one we have been describing does as he pleases, he must do wonderful things. God is perfect. He lacks not one facet of his personality or being that would render him imperfect. There is not a single feature about God that any eye may one day see that would disappoint that eye. Pain may press you to believe that there are certain facets about God that are disappointing. This is a distortion of the truth. God is also happy. A beggar on the street may consider you unkind for not tossing him a copper coin in his distress. Yet at the same time, you could be happy that unbeknown to him, you have purchased him a house of his own. He will soon find out. God, knowing what he knows about what he has in store for you, child of God, has no alternative but to be happy. Moreover, because God is the most excellent being, happiness must unavoidably be one of his attributes. If you were perfect, and if you were like God, you would be happy too. The thrilling news is that God will do that for you in a coming day. He will make you like him. Not only is God perfect, but he is also beautiful. Not only does he not lack any facet of his person that would detract from his perfection, but in addition to his perfection, he possesses every character quality that makes him the most desirable being ever. We can catch a faint glimpse of this when we encounter another person who is outstandingly attractive. They have a way of enchanting us with their beauty. God is clothed in such a beauty that a single glimpse will arrest that eye spellbound for all eternity. If you are suffering under the weight of losing a person who to you was the most beautiful person in the world, take courage that it was the beautiful God who made that person for you. That beloved person is a small sample of the appreciation for beauty in the mind of God, and a tiny reflection of the true beauty of God himself. These are some of the tantalizing facts God has been pleased to reveal about himself in the Bible. There is just so much more to be discovered as you endure the agony of grief. We could, as others have said, combine all of these desirable perfections of God under one shining term, and that is the term glory. To think about any of these attributes of God and to appreciate them deeply is to be forced to exclaim, "Glory," in spite of pain.